This is a bit of biology with Mr. Rock, and today we are going to be talking about classification. So when we're going to be talking about this topic, one of the major terms that we need to understand is taxonomy, because that's what classification is. Taxonomy is the practice of identifying different organisms, classifying them, and then naming them scientifically. So we're going to get into each taxa here in a second, but this is a really good example with the picture below. So we are doing an organized way of identifying organisms. So we start with really broad categories initially. So something like domain. Domain is pretty much eukaryotes, so you have a nucleus, or prokaryotes, you don't have a nucleus. So that's what we're going to start with differentiating. And we're going to get all the way down to a red fox. So kingdom is the next smaller taxa, so it's smaller than domain, and kingdoms can be plants, fungus, and animals. There's more kingdoms than that, but we're just focusing on animals because we're talking about a red fox. Phylum is smaller than that. Chordata is a fancy word for vertebrates. So we're going to move to phylum, and then organisms with vertebrates. Class, mammal. So the fox is a mammal, giving live birth, things like that. Order is next, and then the order is carnivora. So it eats only meats. Family, Canidae, is also known as like the dog family in biology. Genus, now we are talking about a specific group. We are talking about foxes, and then there are many different species of fox. So the species name is going to be Vulpes vulpes. And we'll get into this a little more. So here we go, taxa. Taxa is a specific taxonomic group of any rank. So this example is missing the domain, but the kingdom, so that's a group, and that is a taxa. The phylum, the class, the order, the family, the genus, the species, those are each groups of taxa. So here's another example. We're missing the domain, so we're just assuming these are all eukaryotes. And we're going to be going all the way down to the grizzly bear. If you notice, I like this example because it shows a lot of organisms initially, and then it gets smaller and smaller as you start narrowing down. So you start off, once again, kingdom Animalia. We're going to move all the way down to the grizzly bear. But animals include grizzly bears, black bears, pandas, red foxes, sea stars. The next group we move down to is the phylum. And here's chordata again, which means it has a vertebrate. So we lose the sea star because the sea star does not have a spinal cord. Next, we're going to move down to the class, and the group gets a little smaller. So we're narrowing down our parameters. We lose the snake because snakes are not mammals. We are going to move down to order. Carnivores, so we lost the squirrel. We move down to Ursus urdae, and then the genus is Ursus, and then Ursus arctos is the species, which is the grizzly bear. So the taxa is each ranking group in a taxonomy. So here we go with the names, and one thing I really like to point out is I like the China doll, it's the Russian doll example, because you start off with the really big one, you open it up, and it's a smaller one of that. So I don't know if you've ever seen these Russian dolls, but taxonomy kind of works into that way. So I would like you to make your own way of understanding how these things, like the order of them. So the one my biology teacher used in 10th grade when I took 10th grade biology, so creating like a naming system to remember the order, she used, does Katy Perry come over for good spaghetti? Granted, that's a little silly, but it helped me to remember the biggest one to the smallest one. So it helped me remember the taxa in order. Does Katy Perry come over for good spaghetti? You can create your own way of doing it, but that's one that I've always used. So once again, from largest to smallest, we have the domain, which is mainly prokaryotic or eukaryotic. That's the difference there. Kingdoms are examples like plants, animals, fungus. Phylums is a little more specific, and it consists of many classes. The class consists of many orders, and the class is something like mammals. The order is something like carnivorous animals or herbivorous animals or omnivorous animals. So it's a smaller group. The family, here is another example. Felidae is the cat family. And then the genus, there's many different types of cats. And then the species is specifically talking about like a house cat or something like that. So this is the 8 taxa in biology. So you'll see right away that like we kind of run into a problem, because if you want to call something a dog or you want to call something a cat, that's great if you speak English, but science is typically a world studied topic, so having a scientific way of naming things is very, very important. And if Darwin is the father of evolution, then Carl Linnaeus is the father of naming, because he developed this thing called binomial nomenclature. It is a 2-part scientific naming system, so we can give species scientific names so that the whole world, no matter what language you speak, we all speak the same language of biology, which is binomial nomenclature. So with this, the first word is used as the genus, so the genus is the taxa, and then the second group is the species. A couple things to point out. The letters are italicized, and then the first letter in the genus is capitalized when you see it in text, such as textbooks or in readings or something like that. So the one you might have heard of before is Homo sapiens. Those are humans. Homo sapiens is our scientific name. Pan troglodytes is a scientific name for chimpanzees. Ursus arctos is a scientific name for the brown bear. So this gives us a way for us to communicate in different languages, and when I say Homo sapiens, everybody else that speaks different languages knows that I'm talking about humans. If I say pan troglodytes, everybody knows the type of species that I'm talking about, even if you speak Spanish, French, Chinese, whatever. The final and last thing is dichotomous keys, and this is going to be a process that we use for identifying and classifying organisms that we do not know. So, for example, we see a bunch of different leaves here, and leaves come from trees, and those trees are organisms, and we're going to start off with A, and we are going to try to classify and scientifically name A based off of our dichotomous key, and it's kind of like a choose your own ending book. So let's try to do this dichotomous key together and find out what tree A came from. So the first question, always start off with number 1, and this is going to either go left or go right, or go to number 2 or number 3. The first question is needle leaves or non-needle leaves. So we look at A, there are no needle leaves, so it says go to 3. So we're going to jump over to 3. And the question is simple leaves or compound leaves. Now on some of these you might not know what the description is. Compound leaves is having many different leaves, so like a lot of leaves, not one main leaf. But we're talking about A here. So A is a simple leaf. So we're going to go to 4. 4, is it smooth edged or jagged edged? Okay, it's definitely got a smooth edge to it, so we're going to go to 5. Sorry, we went to 4, now we're going to go to 5. And then we're coming to 5. Leaf edge is smooth or it is lobed. If you don't know what lobed is something like that, where there's different like grooves in it. It is definitely a smooth edge, smooth all the way around. So A's leaf came from a magnolia tree. So this gives us a way to identify and classify species in biology. It's a very useful tool. It's called a dichotomous key. This has been a bit of biology with Mr. Rock. I'm signing off.